Hello. LJ, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You go for it. It's all you.
All right. Welcome, everyone. It's really nice to see you all. We'll probably have a few more folks trickling in here, and that's a-okay. If this was you're expecting to see proposal editing, you are in the right spot. If not, hang around and we'll talk about editing. Okay, let's see if my slides advance. Okay, did it advance for you guys?
Yes.
Great. So I'm going to assume we have a pretty eclectic mix of job titles of folks today here on this call. And that's great. I'm really excited to see that. This presentation is focused specifically on proposal editing, but I do hope that anybody, regardless of your role, can take away a few things for editing business documents in general for what you use on a daily basis in your role. My name is Christina Nelson. I've been here at ASU and GSI for 6.5 years. It's gone very fast, and I'm excited to see some familiar faces here on the list of names. I work in a group called Global Security Initiative. A lot of you know GSI. We are ASU's interdisciplinary hub for large-scale complex defense and security challenges with topics such as cybersecurity, disinformation, AI robot teaming, visualization analytics. It's a really great research group to work with, and we have about 150 faculty affiliates all across campus in a variety of disciplines, and I absolutely love the fact that it is an eclectic group of people, and I love working with all of you. Prior to ASU, I worked at a scientific society and I was the team lead of the proceedings production department. And our team reviewed and published thousands of research manuscripts from presentations at international conferences every single year. I love editing. You can see here on the screen, I have a master's in technical communication from ASU. And if you call me a word nerd, I will not be offended. I'm probably the first person to use that term about myself. So that's a bit about me. Here is our agenda for today. We're going to talk about editing. What is editing? Why do we need to do it? Why is it important? We'll talk about some tips of how to have a strong proposal and how editing can help in that regard. We'll do a little recap at the end. We'll talk about timeline. When is the appropriate time to be doing some of these editing stages? And we will have a Q&A at the end. As LJ mentioned at the beginning, we're recording right now, but for the Q&A, we'll pause that and just have a discussion. And feel free to, if you use the feature of raising your hand, I may not see it, but LJ can shout at me and let me know. Otherwise, just break in and we can have this be an informal discussion. But do know it at the end, we'll have time to ask questions as well. Okie doke. So what's editing? Let's do a little audience participation. So there will be a couple times here where I'll ask you guys to put in the chat field some thoughts, if you're comfortable, not required. So when you hear someone say, edit or editing, when you hear those words, what do you think of? And you can have no filter, it's okay. There's no judgment here. I'm just curious what everyone's thoughts are when you hear those words editing or edit. I had hoped to do one of those snazzy polls that some people do in Zoom, and I just had this little thought in the back of my head that Murphy's Law, it probably won't work out. So we're going old school, just doing the chat. Distill, that's a good word. Rewording, that's good. Improving, cleaning up a draft. Who's my audience? Ooh, good question. Yep, grammar, structure, good. Aligning multiple voices, super. These are great. So did anyone, thank you, continuous improvement. Did anyone think of their 8th grade English teacher? Did anyone think of a big red pen coming at you, like on that image on your screen? And that's okay. That is kind of the mindset of editing, but hopefully we all, myself included, view it a little more positively and see this as process improvement, as someone mentioned, continuous improvement to strengthen especially our proposals. That's kind of the goal here of our editing. So do you think of commas, boring things like commas and semicolons? Well, copy editing, grammar, punctuation, spelling, all of that is extremely important. Someone mentioned that. And proposal editing is that and more. It's sort of on top of all of that. It's cross-checking the funding announcement and making sure you're being compliant. It's matching the mission of your sponsor. It's sort of that kind of high level stuff all the way down to the super granular, boring commas and semicolons. Thanks for your feedback, everyone. You'll get a chance to do it again. Question, do you think of your proposals as a sales document? It's a bit of a rhetorical question because the answer is yes. A proposal is a sales document, but sometimes we don't really have this mindset of sales, especially in academia. But I just would love to gently challenge that and say, well, what is sales? Sales is kind of explaining what your expertise and service and product is, right? And then trying to encourage or convince your customer to, I guess, exchange might be the appropriate word, money or, services themselves, whatever. And so that's exactly what a proposal is. So it's exactly a sales document. So yeah, I would just encourage all of us to think of it that way. And as we're editing, as we're writing and editing, to think of it in that kind of frame of mind. So the technical narrative of your proposal is, of course, for technical content, but it's more than just the technical stuff. It's explaining to your reviewer, okay, here's how my research idea is going to benefit you. And please give me your funding so that I can prove that to you. It's explaining how your solution can help solve a problem. Shameless plug of a puppy picture, I know. So we're going to use a little analogy here and let's see if this is successful, but I just wanted to use a puppy picture. So how is your proposal like a puppy? Every puppy deserves great, wonderful things that can help him grow and be healthy, right? Of course, of course. And you, in writing and creating your proposal, are putting all that good stuff into your proposal as well. So you've got like subject matter experts who are your key personnel on this project. You have a fleet of administrative staff at the home office who are helping with forms and budgets and, super experienced folks who are helping support that. You have put in a ton of your own time in writing and going to meetings talking about this proposal. So editing is kind of one of those, shall we say, multivitamins to help your proposal be strong and healthy. And, I just kind of want to put it out on the table. It's not always easy to get feedback, is it? None of us really love that big red pen coming at us, but it is for the better of our proposal. It will make it stronger. It will help it grow up to be a nice, strong proposal. So I don't know if I made the leap there with that analogy, but mostly I just wanted to use a puppy picture. So thanks for indulging me. Oops, did I go beyond? Okay, next section, we're going to get into some tips here that can help you. This is some of the granular details, okay? Okay, so here is a fun exercise. I created this sentence. This is just a made up sentence. So if you're reading it word for word and saying that doesn't make any scientific sense, you're right, because I just picked a bunch of words and put them in sentences. But I'm going to read this out loud and you guys look at that it that's highlighted in yellow and see if you can determine what the it is. This platform identifies biocatalysts that perform chemical reactions with new molecules and profiles. Oops, my window is covering that, sorry. That use state-of-the-art disease detection. It provides a strategy to expand the data set for chemical synthesis. Okay, so again, rhetorical question. Do you know what the it refers to? No, it's pretty confusing. It's pretty ambiguous, right? How many nouns, how many possible things are in the sentence before that it could be referring to? So we want to make sure that our language is not ambiguous. We want to make it easy for our reader to determine what we're talking about. The main goal of any sort of writing is to be effective and be clear and be very concise. And anytime we're like introducing ambiguity, that's not a good thing. So quick fix here, if you run into this problem, and I, full disclosure, do this all the time. I catch myself doing this all the time, using it. The fix is to simply repeat, if it was the platform, you would say again, the platform provides a strategy to expand. That's probably the simplest fix. Okay, let's see if my advancing works. It did. Okay, so acronyms. Many of you know the Dr. Seuss book, The Lorax, and the main character in that speaks for the trees, right? That's a very famous line. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to speak for the reviewer and the reader here. And I would love to say, for the love of Lorax, please spell out your acronyms. It is human nature to think that the acronyms that we all use in our little worlds are, everyone else understands what those are. I do this, I'm guilty of this. GSI, DOD, DARPA, I throw those around like crazy. And the people in GSI know what those acronyms are, but folks outside of our department may not know what that means. And folks outside of ASU certainly won't understand like ERA, for instance. We would need to really define that. It's really easy to, when you're writing your proposal, to say, well, this chemical compound has a commonly understood acronym, or this process has a commonly understood acronym. Perhaps it's commonly understood in your field, but someone who's reviewing your proposal may not be in your field. So what's the quick fix for this? Just spell out that acronym the first time you use it in your proposal. Use the full words. If you're referring to a program that you completed in the past, a sponsor program that has an acronym, spell that out, because usually the name of the program has very clear indications of what the topic is. But the acronym may not, it might be kind of a cheeky acronym and kind of fun, but it may not necessarily hint at what the actual program was. So if you put that in your past experience section, for instance, just the acronym, anyone reviewing it might be like, what in the world is this? I don't know what it is. So if you spell it out the first time and put in parentheses your acronym, then you can use your acronym the rest of the proposal. That's the quickest fix there. Okie doke. Let's go to the next one. Sorry for the delay. It's kind of a little slow on the click here. Metrics. Okay, here's another exercise we can do. So on the left-hand side is a blurb, and I'll read this out loud. And we'll compare this to the blurb on the right. Arizona State University was founded a long time ago. ASU is a big university with huge enrollment and offers a lot of programs, majors, and certificates. ASU has good research expenditures. So nothing inherently erroneous about this, of course, but it's a little vanilla and a little bland, right? Contrast that with the one on the right-hand side there and see how all of those metrics are popping out. We've got specific dates, we've got dollar amounts, we've got quantities of students. That is going to really pop out to a reviewer as well. So reminder that reviewers are not reading word for word this proposal. It's sort of a sad reality for all of us when we are dumping, huge chunks of our life into writing these proposals, right? But they are skimming, skim, skim, skim. So if we can have them stop and look at these numbers and be impressed with these numbers, great. That's helping to strengthen your proposal. Metrics are always going to strengthen your proposal. So sprinkle them throughout when possible. We really want to make sure that we are giving you every leg up that you possibly can have. Let's see, clicking. There we go. Okay, another audience participation. So get your chat field ready if you're comfortable doing so. Looking at this before and after. So now we're going to start moving into talking about the visual aspect of our proposal. When you look at these images, this is rhetorical, which one looks better? The one on the right obviously looks better, but why? Why is the image on the right more appealing? I'll give you guys a few seconds to type some thoughts about this image on the right-hand side. Why do we want to look at that more than we want to look at the one on the left-hand side? I had so much fun looking at before and after pictures. I went down the Google image rabbit hole, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have done this as well. And why is it so satisfying to see before and after? Oh man, I just wanted to spend the whole day looking at before and after. Okay, what thoughts do we have coming in here? More organized. Yes, you can see everything in one glance. That's a good one. Yep. Clean. Yep. Yep. Someone did the organization for me, Jamie. Good patterns, easy to access, know where you can find stuff. Love this. See how she put in there, shirts are together, hats are together. It's kind of clumped, it's categorized and chunked. Parsimonious. Wow, that's a $10 word. Good one. Thanks for sharing your thoughts there. Yes, all of those things 100% are true. It's cleaner, it's less cluttered, it has structure, it's categorized. We know the boots are on the top shelf. We know the shirts are hanging on the bottom right. It's got breathing room, right? So even in document design, we use this term breathing space to kind of like let the words breathe on the page. Maybe you've heard this before, but it actually is almost like, you know, as a reader, you kind of go, okay, I'm relaxed. And I've got breathing space here. That's a lot of what's behind why this is a lot more appealing. So carrying on with this concept, here on your screen are two examples. This is sort of the room tidying concept. This applies to documents as well. Now, I did not pull actual proposals because I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus, but this is a funding announcement up on your screen. Department of Energy, DOE, SBIR, STTR. So the image on the left, that's not bad, right? It's readable. It's actually got some white space. Hard returns, which is that paragraph symbol, and gives you the nice line in between your paragraphs. It's got a heading, so it's not awful. It is a lot of text though, right? So on the right-hand side, this is better. And why is this better? And I'll just go ahead and rattle off a few things here, but feel free to put in the chat as well. Those text boxes, I'm assuming we all immediately, our eyes went right to the outlines, right? Those call out boxes, those outlines. It contains that information. It's saying to us, look, this is all kind of the same subject. It's clutter-free, it's nice and tidy. It has bullets. Yay! People who I work with on a regular basis know I absolutely love bullets, especially in proposals. Kind of gets rid of those extraneous words. You don't have to use full sentences. You can take out the, and they're just a really concise way to group and to have white space on the sides as well. And of course, color, hyperlinks, you know, usually aren't allowed in a lot of proposals, but in this case, I wanted to show the contrast here of color. So when you have black and white, of course, any other color is immediately going to pop off the page, right? So that helps us when we're thinking about images or using color. I mean, even like a divider line in between sections that is a different color, that's going to be a visual pop as well. All right. Do we see the difference here? More white space, more structure, more formatting. Graphics. Graphics are great. Graphics are fantastic. Graphics can be photos, they could be illustrations, they could be tables, they could be a still frame of a link to a video, a call out box. They are great in a proposal for a variety of reasons. So as you can imagine, if this were on a page, like a Word document, if this image were on the page, what would you go to? Boom, immediately you'd go to this image, right? And what would draw you? Why would you be interested in this? Well, maybe the colors. See how it's got like the circles and it's got the different colors in it. Nice and tidy. The lines are really clean. There's no extraneous information there. It's very fluid and easy to understand, even if the concept is not necessarily easy to understand. We can kind of get the gist of what this author is saying just because of the fact it's a workflow. It's an image of showing a workflow. So how many words do you think this would take if this was in a paragraph form to explain this cybersecurity workflow? Lots and lots and lots of sentences, right? And this is not at all to say that this is 100% to replace the narrative. It's not. There should be sentences in the paragraphs, the narrative portion as well. But this image would complement that narrative. And the reader can skim or read the stuff. And if it's a little confusing, can refer to this image and be like, oh, I get what they're saying here. It flows to this thing. Oh, you got it. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here. Like, we all know that this stuff is helpful. It can take a lot of work to make it though, right? So graphics are so important that sometimes sponsors require them. This is an actual sponsor template for a current DARPA right now. It's called Coded Visibility, or CV. And this is a quad chart or a slide. And you'll notice here in purple, I circled where it said provide graphics. So this is the sponsor saying, yup, you got to put a graphic in here. DARPA requires quad charts very frequently, overview slides like this, AKA quad chart. In fact, if you've worked with us and GSI, we oftentimes recommend this to PIs. If you're still kind of brainstorming or cooking your idea as you're approaching writing your proposal, this is an amazing tool to get you started. It's actually quite challenging, those of you who have done this before, to create a document like this. And if you haven't ever made a quad chart before, don't feel badly if once you start, you realize how much time it takes, because you are taking this very high level, technically dense concept and distilling it down into 4 squares, a couple sentences in each square. And oh, by the way, probably only 3 squares because one of them has to be a graphic. So that is one of those deceivingly simple, I guess, tasks where you're like, how do I put a 30-page proposal into a few sentences on a slide? But again, very helpful tool. Strongly encourage everyone to become familiar with learning how to create a quad chart. This is sort of your elevator pitch for your proposal. Advancing, there we go. The Heilmeyers. We in GSI love the Heilmeyer questions. And if you've worked with us, you have heard us talk about them. The Heilmeyer Catechism was created by a director of DARPA. His name was George Heilmeyer in the 1970s. And at that time, it was created as a tool before starting any project that DARPA would embark on. These questions are applicable to any sponsor. You know, anytime any of us are looking at starting a project or a proposal, run through these questions. It's very, very helpful. So what are you trying to do? Again, deceivingly simple. You think, well, I know what I'm trying to do. Okay, then explain it. And you start to write and you're like, oh, wait. Oh, and by the way, don't use any jargon. Yeah, that can be a little tricky, right? Current state of the art, how is it kind of being done? And then why is your stuff innovative? How are you going to make it better or different? Number 4, we have highlighted because this is one of our favorite ones in our team. It's a little blunt, and that's why we kind of chuckle, but who cares? And it can feel a little, you know, you might feel a little defensive when someone says that, but frankly, it's extremely important as a PI, as an author. If you can't answer this question, probably not quite ready to submit a proposal. So this is a fabulous tool. And if you are asked to review someone else's proposal, have these questions handy and kind of flip-flop between the proposal and these questions, and it will really help you provide some excellent feedback. The ones on the bottom are some pretty typical questions that you'll have in any proposal, like, what's the timeline? What will it cost? The risk and payoff, that's extremely important to define. You don't just want to go in blindly to a proposal, and you certainly don't want to be Pollyanna about it, like, there are no risks, because the sponsor is going to be like, really? Uh-huh. So that's the Heilmeyer, and I have a link to this at the end. Okay, some more editing tips, and we could spend hours and hours talking about a variety of things to do. This is just a sampling here. Spell check, we all know it, we all love it, but it's a little too easy to have it be a crutch, right? We got to be really careful to not lean too heavily on spell check, because a lot of stuff can slip through. So make sure that you personally are doing the line by line check. Even though spell check is awesome, just make sure that you're also doing your own personal manual checks. Font boxes. So this is something that usually happens in a equation. And those of you who use like MATLAB or LaTeX, if you using another program, then you paste it into like Google Doc or Microsoft Word, sometimes those special characters will drop out, and then you're left with just a blank box. Some of you have probably seen this before. So oftentimes in a funding announcement, the sponsor will require only a certain small set of fonts, like Times New Roman, TNR. And if you are converting equations, like if you do a Control All and then change the font, sometimes those special characters will drop out as well. A fix for that, if you're in Word, is on the top of your Word document. Go to the ribbon and you can insert special characters, and there are a whole bunch of commonly used ones there. And if you're trying and trying and trying and nothing's working, you can simply just write out the name of the special character, like MU for Mew or whatever. Bolding, italicizing, again, we're trying to stop the reviewer from doing the fast scan. We want them to slow down and look at stuff and go, ooh, this looks exciting. So if it's a key aspect of your proposal, bold that sentence or put it in italics. We want to make it scan friendly. Active voice and passive voice. This is something that's commonly talked about, be strong. I am doing this. The team conducted experiments. That's your active voice. Phone a friend. This is just editing in general. Ask someone else to review your document. It could be formal, like a red team review, which is a very kind of structured process where you have a third party who's not intimately involved in the proposal do a look at your proposal and provide feedback, fresh eyes feedback. Or it could be informal, where you have a colleague and say, hey, can you look at my facilities paragraph and see if this looks right, or is there anything missing here? You could send just a section to a colleague or a friend. That's an easy way to get editing feedback as well, especially if you don't want to ask a ton of time of them. If there's a particular section that's causing you problems, just send that one section off to someone who's a trusted colleague who can give you good feedback. Matching to the funding announcement, of course, is extremely important, but I always try to encourage people, like, don't just read the funding announcement when you're thinking about pursuing it and then set it aside and it collects dust. Have that document right there, and you are constantly looking at it and checking and rechecking. There is usually a list that the sponsor will provide to say, this is how you can be compliant. You must include this and this and this, but that's sometimes not always super clear. Sometimes it's kind of hidden. You might have to take a highlighter and go through the whole thing and highlight. A trick I do a lot is Control F for the words must and should, encouraged. Those words are usually a tip off that the sponsor's saying, include this, or this is a deal breaker. All right, so let's talk about timeline a little bit and then do a little recap. So when should we be editing? The quickest answer is to say always. This is not just a one-time thing. As you're writing, make sure you're doing these check-ins with yourself. Make sure you're doing check-ins with other people if you have asked them to look at those different sections. This is a process. This is an ongoing process. A red team review, this is going to depend on the overall timeline of your proposal. If you have 9 months to write this, you probably have enough time to do more than one pretty in-depth review. If you have 3 weeks, you find out about this thing and you got to crank out a proposal, a 2-week, goal to do a red team review, you won't even have it written 2 weeks before the deadline. So this is just to clarify, this is not cookie cutter. It's going to be different for every proposal you're working on. And a shout out to the graphic artists. If you were working with an artist, they usually have their own timeline, and you want to make sure to pad that into your review time for your technical content, your narrative. You're going to want to iterate on those graphics. They are so important, and it can usually take a couple versions before you get it just right. Okay, so let's recap with another puppy picture. So editing, proposal editing, copy editing is great, but it's more than just the commas. We want to match to the mission. We want to match to the funding announcement. So make sure you're doing the high level stuff with the deep dive in the weeds as well. Think of your proposal as a sales document. Have that in your mind as you're writing and editing. Make it scannable, scan friendly, whatever term we want to use there. We want to slow down those fast scans. So when eyeballs are looking over it and they're flipping through the pages, anything we can do to slow down and catch their eye, we want to do that, which document design will help with a lot. Phone a friend, have someone review your stuff, get that feedback. Our own personal blinders, we sometimes don't catch stuff, and those fresh eyes really can help. And lastly, this is a process, whether you are editing someone else's stuff or whether someone's editing yours. It can take a little while to get comfortable with that process. It can feel a little weird to get feedback. It can feel negative, and I always catch myself when I'm editing someone's proposal or business document where I don't focus on the positive as much as I should. Do a call out and say, wow, you did an awesome job with this section, or this graphic is amazing, because it can feel like you're in 8th grade English class, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm failing this class. But it takes practice, and gosh, it really is going to help you in the long run. This presentation, for example, I got feedback from some folks yesterday, and they saw stuff that just totally I missed. And I'm so grateful to all of you who took time to give me that feedback. And just remember, you're awesome, and people want to hear your ideas. The more effort that you put into strengthening your proposal, the better your idea is going to come across. So let's see here if we are at the end. I think we are in LJ. Yep. So here are some resources. At the bottom here, we've got some workshops coming up from the KERD team: proposal layout and graphics, February 1st, and budgeting for proposals on February 22nd. So short and sweet, but that gives us time for questions. Do not feel like you need to hang around though. We can always end early. I want to say a huge thanks to LJ for helping support this presentation, and the KERD team for doing such an amazing job with all of these workshops. I'll pass it back to you, LJ.